everyone, welcome back to chapter 18.2, and this is part 2 of this lesson on applying the laws of indices. If you could please pause the video and have a go at the questions that are on the slide. They're all based on the last lesson. So if you haven't watched the last lesson, you need to go back and watch it please before you attempt this, or if you're stuck when you're looking at these questions, you need to go back and try the lesson before as well, okay? So otherwise, if you're happy to have a go, please pause and play when you're ready for the solutions. Okay, so just bear with me whilst the camera loads, and then I can go through the solutions with you. There we go. Okay, so question 1 asks you to write as a single power, and then part A, we're doing 3 to the power of 7 all squared, okay? Remember, when we have two indices like this, when we're raising an indice to another indice, we're multiplying. The rule means we multiply. Okay, so 3 to the power of 7 squared is 7 times 2, which is 14. So it's 3 to the power of 14. And just a quick recap of what that means. The squared means I'm doing 3 to the power of 7 times by itself twice. So what I'm doing is 3 to the power of 7 times 3 to the power of 7. And we know when we're multiplying indices, we add our indices. So that would get you to 3 to the power of 14 as well. You don't need to do this. You learn the rule that you multiply those two powers and you'd get 3 to the power of 14. Okay, B, we've got 8 squared all cubed. Okay, so that means 8 to the power of 2 multiplied by itself 3 times. We just multiply our 2 and 3. That gives us 6. It's 8 to the power of 6 there. For C, we have 15 cubed all raised to the power of 4. So we need to multiply our 3 and 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So that answer there is 15 to the power of 12 as a single power. Okay, part D. We have brackets 3 squared multiplied by 3 cubed, close brackets, all cubed. Okay, so first you need to deal with your brackets. As we're multiplying, we add our indices. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So that leaves us with 3 to the power of 5 all cubed. Now we just multiply. 5 times 3 is 15, so my answer is 3 to the power of 15 there. Okay, part E, bracket 4 to the power of 5 divided by 4 to the power of 3, all cubed. Do our brackets first. When we divide indices with the same base, we know that we subtract. So 5 subtract 3 is 2, so that leaves us with 4 squared, all to the power of 3. Now we've done that, we multiply our indices. So 2 times 3 is 6, so my answer is 4 to the power of 6. Part F, we have 3 to the power of 4 multiplied by 3 to the power of 5 all over 3 squared to the power of 4, okay? Deal with the numerator first. We're multiplying, so we add our indices. 4 plus 5 is 9, so that leaves us with 3 to the power of 9 on top. And then our denominator, we multiply, so we've got 2 times 4, which is 8, so 3 to the power of 8 at the bottom. Now this is a type of division, isn't it, when it's fractions? So we're subtracting our indices. 9 subtract 8 is 1, so our answer is 3 to the power of 1, which is just 3. Okay? That was F. Now, question 2. It says write as a fraction. So from last lesson, we know when we're raised to a negative 1, it's just looking for the reciprocal. So that should be 1 over 3. Okay? So B, we had 5 to the negative 1. So that's just 1 over 5. And C, we had A to the negative 1. So that's just 1 over A. Okay? For part D, we now have 4 to the negative 2. So all we do is the negative tells us we're going to go 1 over, and then it's going to be 4 squared. Okay, so then you just use the positive version of your indice, and then you can find 4 squared, which is 16, so it's 1/16, your answer. Okay, E, we have 2 to the negative 2, so it's the same thing, 1 over 2 squared, and we know 2 squared is 4, so it's 1/4 as our answer. Now, when we've got a fraction, so we've got 2/3 here, raised to a -3. The negative tells us we need to flip it, we need to find our reciprocal. Our reciprocal is 3 over 2, and now that's all cubed, okay? So now that's the positive power. So it's 3 over 2 because we found the reciprocal of the fraction, and that gets rid of our negative there, and it just leaves it all cubed. Now we need to find the cubed of each of our numbers in the fraction. So we need to do 3 cubed, and we need to do 2 cubed, okay? 3 cubed, we should know, is 27, because that's just 3 times 3, which is 9, times 3 again, which is 27, and 2 cubed is 8. So our answer there should be 27 over 8. And then G finally, we've got 1/2 raised to -3. So the negative tells us find the reciprocal, so flip our fraction. That gives us 2 over 1, and then it'll all be cubed, okay? That gets rid of the negative. So I need to do 2 cubed over 1 cubed. 2 cubed I know is 8. 1 cubed I know is 1. So 8 over 1 is just 8 as our final answer there. So well done if you got those. If you didn't get those, please go back and have a look at the last lesson, because everything else that we're doing now is following on upon that knowledge, okay? It's just practice. We've only got a few questions to practice in this lesson, and it's all based on that knowledge, okay? So please make sure you do understand it fully, and if you don't, you go back and seek any help where you need to, okay? So, moving on. So we have those questions on the board there, on the screen rather. So if you have a look, for question 14 it says write these numbers from smallest to largest. So you need to consider their values and write them from smallest to largest, okay? And then for question 15 it says work out, and then it gives you some questions to work out. Okay, so have a go, see what you think you can do with those. And then play when you're ready to go through the solutions. Okay, so the answers are there on the screen for you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the solutions for each. So for 14, we needed to write those numbers from smallest to largest, okay? Now, if we start with 10 to the power of 3 and 10 to the, and then 100 to the power of 2, we know that they're bigger numbers than the rest, because the rest are either raised to a negative power or they've got 1 to the power of something, okay? So what we'll do then is think about the 10 cubed first. So 10 cubed we know is going to be 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, so we know that that's 1,000. 10 to 100, squared is 100 multiplied by 100. Okay, and that will give us 10,000. So I know that my biggest one is 100 squared, and then the next biggest one is going to be 10 cubed. Then let's think about the others. We've got 10 to the -3. So we know that's going to be the same as 1 over 10 cubed. And we know 10 cubed is 1,000, so that's 1 over 1,000. Okay? Then we look at 100 to the -2. We know that it's going to be 1 over 100 squared. And we know from this part that 100 squared is 1 over 10,000, making this one much smaller than that one. Okay? Then we've got 1 to the power of 4. We know that just means 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, and we know our answer there would just be 1. and then we have 1 to the negative 5. Now, you could go through the process and go, okay, well, that means it's 1 over 1 to the power of 5. 1 over 1 to the power of 5 is 1 because it's just 1 multiplied by itself 5 times, so that's just 1. But you should know anything, 1 raised to the power of anything is always going to be 1. So we know they both have the value of 1. Now you just need to put them in order from smallest to largest. 100 to the power of minus 2, that's going to be my smallest. Then 10 to the power of negative 3. Then 1 to the power of 4 and 1 to the power of negative 5, they're the same, so they go together next in the order. Either way round is fine. Then we've got 10 cubed, and finally 100 squared as our largest. Okay, so that should be your answer there. Next one then, we're looking at those calculations that they want us to work out. So for 15a, we have 6 to the negative 1 multiplied by 12. We know 6 to the negative 1 is going to give us 1 over 6 times 12. Okay, so 1/6 times 12. We're multiplying fractions here, so 1 times 12 is 12. And then 6, remember that's like it's 12 over 1, it's just 12 1, so 6 times 1 is 6. That just gives us 12 over 6, or 12 divided by 6, which we know is 2. B, we had 300 times 10 to the power of negative 1, which is equal to 300 times 1 over 10. Okay, so if we're multiplying our fractions, remember 300 is the same as 300 over 1. Multiply our numerators. 300 times 1 is 300. Then multiply our denominators. 1 times 10 is 10. 300 divided by 10 is 30. So that's your final answer there. C, we have 1,800 times 10 to the power of negative 4. So that leaves us with 1,800 times 1 over 10 to the power of 4. Now, these last questions, they are standard form, but we haven't looked at that yet, so I'm not going to go through the rules for those. I'll just try and talk you through how to do it the long way around, okay? So, we've got 1,800 times 1 over 10 to the power of 4. Now, 10 to the power of 4, we know 10 to the power of 3 was 1,000, so 10 to the power of 4 is 10,000. Okay, so that means it's 1,800 times 1 over 10,000. Remember, that's 1,800 over 1. Multiply our numerators, that gives us 1,800. Multiply our denominators, that gives us 10,000. Okay, so we're doing 1,800 divided by 10,000. Now, we can see they both have 2 zeros on the end, so we can eliminate 2 zeros by dividing them both by 100, and that leaves us with 18 over 100. So that just means 18 divided by 100, and when I divide by 100, I move the decimal 2 places to the left. So imagine your decimal's at the end there, because it's like 18.0. You move it 2 places to the left, and that would give me 0.18 as my final answer. Okay, then part D, we have 18 times 23 to the power of 0. Now, from yesterday's lesson, hopefully you remembered that anything to the power of 0 is 1. So that's equivalent to 18 times 1. 23 to the power of 0 will be 1. 18 times 1 is 18. Okay, and that's your final answer there. So well done if you got those. If you struggled with part C, don't worry too much, but just go back through my solution to see if you understand it, okay? And moving on then. Okay, so now pause the video again, please. Have a go at these 2 exam-style questions. Check your hints, because they're there to help you. And then we'll go through the solutions when you are done. Please press play. Okay, so solutions are on the screen, the answers are there, and I'm going to go through the full work solutions on the split screen with you. So question 17, it's an exam style question, and part A says, find the value of 3 cubed. Okay, so hopefully you know that it's 27, but if not, it's 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 once more is 27. So your answer to part A should be 27. Part B has asked you to write down the reciprocal of 7. Okay, so write down the reciprocal of 7, and you should know from your previous lessons that's just 1 over 7. If you're not sure about that one, remember 7 or any whole number is the same as that whole number over 1, and then we know the reciprocal, we just flip. So that's 1 over 7. Okay? And then part C says work out the value of 2 over 3, to the power of negative 2. Okay, the negative, we should know, tells us we're going to flip our fraction and find our reciprocal. So that's the same as 3 over 2 then. And then it's squared. Okay, that gets rid of the negative when we flip it. So now we need to square each of those numbers. So it's 3 squared over 2 squared. So it's 9 over 4. Okay, and then in their answer, they've changed it from an improper fraction to a mixed number. So how many 4s go into 9? Well, that's 2. So 2 becomes our integer. With how many remaining? That's 1. So 1 is our numerator. And then the 4 remains the same. Okay, so it's 2 1/4 when you converted it from improper to mixed. Okay, so well done if you got those. Question 18. You've been given a hint that says work out the value of each expression. Okay, so it says write these numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest. So we've just done one very similar. And what I did in that, and as it's suggested, is I wrote the value of each. So 5 to the power of negative 4 is equal to 1 over 5 to the power of 4. Okay, so remember, the negative makes it, you find the reciprocal, and then each of the numbers are to the power of 4. Okay, so then we say 1 over, and 5 to the power of 4 is like 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, and when you eventually work that out, that's 625. So that's 1 over 625. So that's a very small number. The next one then, we had 0.5. So we know the value of 0.5. If you wanted it as a fraction so you can compare, it's a half. Okay, then you've got 5 to the power of negative 1. 5 to the power of negative 1. We know we need to find our reciprocal there then, and it's just 1/5. And then we've got 0.5 to the power of 2. Okay, so that's the same as a half to the power of 2. Okay, so that's the same as 1 over 2 squared, which is 1 over 4, 1/4. Okay, then you need to compare them. It's asked you to write them in order starting with the smallest. Our smallest is definitely this one, the 5 to the power of negative 4. And it's the smallest because it's got the biggest denominator there, okay? That's by far the smallest number. So that one we write first, 5 to the power of negative 4. The second one, we need to find the next smallest. So 1/5, its value is roughly 0.2. Not roughly, its value is 0.2. We know that one's 0.5, and we know 1/4 is 0.25, if that makes it easy for you to compare. Therefore, 0.2 is smaller, so my 5 to the power of negative 1 comes next. Then the next one is going to be my 0.5 squared, because that's 0.25, and that's smaller than 0.5. We've got 0.5 to the power of 2, and then finally the last one is my 0.5. Okay, and that's the order that you should have had. So well done for completing today's session. Please make sure that if you didn't understand any parts from the part 1 last lesson or part 2 this lesson, please make sure you go back over and go through the video, because it is important stuff that you need to know here, okay? So thank you very much, and well done.